Thailand has lifted emergency measures aimed at ending months of protests. Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha imposed the emergency decree banning gatherings of more than 4 people last Thursday. The measures aimed to quell escalating demonstrations calling for the resignation of Mr Prayut and the reform of the monarchy. Now, for the latest, Saksit Sambat joins us from Bangkok. Saksit, this announcement, it comes less than a day after Mr Prayut spoke of a conditional cancellation of the decree only if there were no violent incidents yesterday. So does this actually mean that protesters have met his condition?
Well, all sides involved here, Glenda, are definitely all aware that this will not end the protests right now. But it is still a very interesting and a rare omission and a rare concession by Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, who actually made the first step forward, giving out an olive branch to the protesters, saying, I'm taking the first step to defuse the situation. That's actually what he said in his pre-recorded statement last evening, while protesters were actually marching on Government House, the place of his government. But nevertheless, things were largely, overwhelmingly peaceful that night. So, in accordance to that, and he kept his word, he actually revoked this emergency law aimed at banning those protests. Because you also have to keep in mind, a lot has happened in the past 7 days. It was aimed to quell and curb those protesters, but every measure along the way has backfired and has only sparked more protests along the way, not only in Bangkok, but also in other parts of the country where the emergency did not apply, by the way. So it is still a very interesting point to see here that the government is willing to make some concessions to the protesters, but the protesters, on the other hand, they still insist on their key demands: A, for Prayut Chan-o-cha to get out, B, for a new constitution, and C, for reforms to the monarchy, an institution that is until just very recently believed to be officially sacrosanct. Now, beyond that as well, as a side note, you have to keep in mind this is just an emergency decree, even though a serious and severe emergency decree, but the state of emergency that we have because of the COVID-19 pandemic since last March is still in effect. It's also going to be aimed to be extended for yet another month until the end of November.
Okay, Saksit, you mentioned there that they still want their demands to be met. So this so-called olive branch, will it have any impact on them who now have given the Prime Minister 3 days to quit?
I think it will not have any big impact as of now. So as I said before, those demands are still the same, and they have just reiterated them on their social media channels. But nevertheless, it will be definitely interesting to see what will happen in the days to come. There is actually going to be a lot of movement until then. Next Monday and Tuesday, Parliament will hold a special session breaking its recess to actually talk about the current political crisis and for ways out. Constitutional amendments could be here on the table as well. But as of now, there's no announcement yet whether or not the protesters will go out again or not, whether or not they will actually wait out the ultimatum in these 3 days until Prayut has resigned or has left the government. But it will be also interesting to see what other events could happen until this day, because right now, since yesterday and the days before that, we're also seeing the other side, royalists, actually making moves as well, especially outside of Bangkok. There have been many smaller rallies by people all dressed in yellow polo shirts during office hours, I might add as well, to come out and show their loyalty to the monarchy and also show that the monarchy needs protection, because they think that the protesters are here not to reform the monarchy but to abolish it. And there have been already some scenes of confrontation yesterday in the outskirts of Bangkok. So the political tension has not been any lowered, even though the government is trying here to lower the temperature.
All right, thanks for keeping us up to date on that. Saksit Sambat speaking to us from Bangkok.